Okay. Good evening, students. Good evening, Chanu. We'll wait for a minute so that others can also join. Hello, Prachi. Hello, Harshita. Have you read this Nobel Prize in Economics? Has anyone gone through this? This is a very technical topic, I understand. So सबके ऊपर से जाएगा. मेरे भी ऊपर से ही जा रहा था, don't worry. But I studied this a lot so that I will be able to explain it to you in the class. So how many of you have read for which kind of physics was Nobel Prize given this year? Don't worry, समझ नहीं आया तो I will help you explain everything. Okay? So have you heard of quantum physics? Anyone? What is quantum physics? What is quantum physics? It is a physics of very tiny particles. Particles which exist in microscopic levels. Understood? Now in 2022 also quantum physics was, or the scientist who got Nobel Prize for Physics, they also got it for quantum physics. Can you tell me what are the properties that particles show in quantum state at microscopic levels? Have you heard of this property called as superposition? Now in classical state, you all guys understand that materials exist in one form at a time, right? So suppose if there is a solid, it can exist in a form of solid, and if I melt it, it would become a liquid, right? So it can't exist as a solid and as a liquid at the same time. Agree to this? But in quantum physics, materials show multiple states. Keep writing this, okay? Multiple states at same time. Now this is a very complex topic, so please write it down so that whenever you read the write-up, everything goes through your brain and not above your brain, right? So please keep this or write this. So this is the first property that a material shows in quantum state, that is the property of superposition. Any other property that you can remember? Anyone? Lakshmi, Harshita, Prachi, Prayash, hello, Nivedita. It's superposition, not hyperposition, Vishnu, okay? The second property is called as entanglement. Entanglement is the property which the properties of two different particles are linked. So suppose I keep two metals normally attached to each other. So if I heat one metal, through the process of conduction, another metal would heat. But suppose if I separate them, don't you think if I heat the first metal, then the second metal wouldn't get heated up, right? So this is how classical physics function. But in quantum physics, if materials are entangled, they will demonstrate same properties even if they are kept physically apart, right? So this second property is called as entanglement. Properties are linked, and even when they are separated, they show similar kind of behavior. Someone said tunneling and Chanu said quantization. Yes, you're right. So what is tunneling? The third property is called as tunneling. Now suppose I take a ball, right? And if I have to send this ball across this wall, so what do? I have to throw that ball with very high energy so that it destroys the wall and goes beyond it, right? So this is how classical physics function. Can I say that if I throw the ball normally, it would go beyond the wall? No, it can't happen, right? So this is a normal classical physics. But in quantum physics, a material in quantum state in microscopic level has the ability to pass through a barrier even without enough energy. So tunneling is passage through a barrier even without enough energy. Even without enough energy. Right? Yes, wave and particle duality. Good, Pooja. From science background, I guess. Now, please understand this. This is very important. Quantum physics in general is very important for your UPSC exam. And when this kind of a development happened, you should be in a position to solve any question when it comes in the prelims and mains examination, right? Now, fourth point, someone said quantization. Any idea what is quantization? What is quantization of energy? Can anyone tell me? Anyway, I'm going to tell you, but I want you to tell me. What is quantization of energy? Yes. Now, have you gone through your basic chemistry or physics? Whenever I heat some particle, the electron that is circling around the nucleus, it goes from a low steady state to a higher steady state, right? So it transitions from a low energy to a higher energy. But it does not transition gradually. It basically moves from one level to another level directly, or it jumps from one level to another level directly. This is called as quantization of energy. That energy, it exists in packets, and these packets are called as quantas. Right? So this is the major properties of particles in microscopic level. So can I say this? This quantum physics basically tells me a microscopic quantum behavior, right? So this is called as what? A microscopic quantum behavior. Why? Because this behavior is demonstrated when a particle is in its microscopic form. Understood? So this is your basics of quantum physics. Now to understand why these people, these three people who have gotten the Nobel Physics Prize this year, we need to understand what different they did, because we had known this already. So they must have done something different to be able to get such a big prize. Any idea what they did? Now to understand why they got, we need to understand something called as Josephson junction. Now Josephson junction is a concept, or it was a theory for which the scientist got Nobel Prize for Economics in the year 1973. And you know what this Josephson junction says? That suppose there are two superconducting material, but instead of putting them together, in between, if I put a material that is an insulator material, what would happen? These two are superconductors. What does superconductors do? Superconductors offers no resistance to passage of a current, right? So ideally, if these two superconductors were attached, the current would pass through without any resistance. But if I've separated these two superconductors with an insulator, should the current pass? Should the current pass? Anyone? Should the current pass? Ideally, no passage of current. But according to Josephson junction concept or theory, it stated that the current would flow, right? So ideally, your classical physics would say that current would not pass in this case. But Josephson junction concept stated, or it theorized, that the current, it would flow. Understood? But I told you this was just a concept or theory. Has it been implemented? The answer in 1973 was no. Right? So what these three people who has gotten Nobel Prize this year, they have been researching since 1970s and 80s. So in 1980, these three people who have gotten Nobel Prize this year, these three people tried to prove this concept and tried to make this concept a reality. Right? So what they did, these two people, they isolated these superconducting plus insulator circuits. Why do you require isolation of this circuit? So as to minimize interference. They tried to prove this in sub-zero temperatures. Temperatures minus 100, minus 200 degree centigrades. Right? Now, while conducting this experiment, they noticed two things. First was that the entire circuit, this entire circuit worked only in certain energy levels. So this entire circuit, it worked only in certain energy levels. And what is this principle called in quantum physics? Any idea? I've made you write 4 principles. This is an example of which principle? When a circuit works only in certain energy levels and not throughout, this is an example of energy quantization. Understood? This is an example of energy quantization. And second observation that they got was this circuit could start working and stop working. That is, this circuit could exist between two different levels without supplying extra energy. And this is an example of what? This is an example of tunneling. Right, Chanu? So you know what this proved? This experiment conducted by these three people who got Nobel Prize this year, this proved that quantum behavior, which we had known to exist only in microscopic levels, now also exists in macroscopic levels. So this demonstrated what? Macroscopic quantum behavior. And you know, in 1980, this was not a big deal because they were already proving a theory which was long established. But later on, they realized that this same concept of superconductivity or same concept of macroscopic quantum behavior can be applied in computer science. Yes, this was a physical macroscopic quantum behavior which exhibited when millions and trillions of atoms they were combined together to form a matter. They also demonstrated quantum behavior, which we had earlier known only to demonstrate this behavior in microscopic levels. Understood? Any doubts up till now? Any doubts up till now? Now, classical computing works on the principle of binary. That is, it exists at two levels, either 0 or 1. Right? This is your classical computer. We all have studied binary. Have you heard of this word binary in your schools? Now, quantum computing, on the other hand, as opposed to classical computing, works on the principle of qubits. In these qubits, both states 0 and 1, they may exist together at the same time. And which is this principle called? Superposition. Right? Have you heard of this? Superposition. Now, to enable function of qubits, you need two specific properties of 2 bits. That is quantized energy state, and on the other hand, you need what? You need the process to demonstrate the phenomenon of tunneling. And these two were proved by whom in physical reality? To make quantum computers a reality, you need qubits. And to make qubits, you need a circuit to demonstrate two qualities. And who demonstrated these two qualities in their circuit? These three people who proved in reality the Josephson junction. Now tell me, what is the significance of quantum computing? What can quantum computers do that classical computers can't do? So now you know how quantum computer functions. Yes, it is first of all very fast. And when it is very fast, what you can do? This quantum computers can simulate materials on how they perform at microscopic levels. And this would be beneficial in which fields? In drug discovery. We have known through nanotechnology that particles in nano state behave differently than particles in normal state. Similarly, particles in quantum state in microscopic levels would again behave differently. Yes. Engineering too, good. Enhanced security, good. Similarly, you can also find new raw materials and simulate how different raw materials would behave. What is encryption? Any idea? Encryption uses mathematical formulas, and those mathematical formulas are so complex that normal computers can't solve those equations. So basically, encryption is a kind of protection that we offer because normal computers are not able to break it. But this normal encryption can be broken by which computers? Quantum computers. And similarly, when they can break these encryptions, they can also make more complex encryptions. right? So this would advance digital security, right? Similarly, many computer process also require many also requires what is called as complex optimization. And this can be done in AI modeling. This can be also done in the logistics sector. And which computers are more able to do complex optimizations? Your quantum computers. Understood? Any doubts? You don't know the level of headache I've gotten just to understand this topic and make it simple enough for you to understand it. दिमाग खराब हो गया मेरा, नहीं होता इतना दिमाग खराब करंट अफेयर्स में. Usually I'm okay in current affairs. I don't stress too much on current affairs. केमिस्ट्री नोबेल टुमारो, आज के लिए इतना कॉम्प्लेक्सिटी काफी है. Even I had studied physics in first and second semester in my engineering, but this is something more complex. Okay. So what you'll do, have you all noted this down, whatever I've written on the board, everyone? Have you noted this down? Good Shaktiraj, PhD करोगे नोबेल मिलेगा तो याद रखना. Okay. What haven't you written, ASB? Write it down quickly. Now the write-up that I will provide you, keep this in your mind and then read it. Everything would appear simple. Otherwise, सब ऊपर ऊपर से जाता. Have you written this down? I hope if you have not written this down, you can watch the video later and note it down. But please note it down. Don't ignore it. So ये तो हो गया तुम्हारा. Now let us deal with some smaller topics first, then we'll cover one big topic. How many of you use UPI? How many of you use UPI? I to use it on a daily basis. Who regulates UPI system? UPI system कौन चलाता है? Which body is responsible for regulating this system? No, not RBI. It is the National Payment Corporation of India. ये चलाता है UPI. RBI regulates it, but who manages it? NPCI. So this transaction, can you do it in your night? Can you do UPI in your night? Yes, UPI is a system available 24/7 and throughout the year. And which is the payment settlement system UPI is functioning on? Is it functioning on RTGS? Is it functioning on NEFT, or which one? Which kind of infrastructure UPI is using underneath? No. Have you heard of IMPS? Immediate Payment Settlement System? IMPS. It uses the infrastructure of IMPS. Right? Now, what are features of UPI? You tell me, since all of you guys use it. No, it does not use RTGS. It uses IMPS. Please remember it. But it is different than IMPS. To make payments in IMPS, you need bank account details as well as you need IFSC code. But in UPI, you just need UPI ID or the mobile number through which the UPI is linked. So it is easier. Both of them are real-time payment system, but this is the difference between the two. But underneath it uses the IMPS system only. Yes. Why zero charges? Because RBI has mandated MDR to be zero on all UPI transactions. You know now what is MDR? Merchant discount rate. MDR is basically the commission the payment and settlement companies get for their online payment services. Now it is also more secure, more private in nature. You don't need mobile ID to make payments. You can make a payment using UPI ID. Suppose you have to make a payment to me. You can write Ankit Singh @UPI. The payment would go to me. So my number stays protected. This is even good for women because women face harassment if their number gets public. Right? Don't make payment on this, please. I know तुम लोग इतने अच्छे नहीं हो, but please don't make a payment. Yes, you can also request a payment from your friend who has taken 500 rupees from you but forgotten to return it. How many of you have friends who have taken money but not returned that money back to you? So these are the benefits. It works across different banks and apps. So basically, if you have your bank account in SBI, you just don't need SBI's app. You can use Bheem app, you can use Paytm, PhonePe, Google Pay, etc. Basically, it gives you the choice to use whichever app you have, irrespective of the bank account. Right? And you can use it to transfer payments to your friends, to businesses, and even utility bill payments, ticket booking, and this is done simply just by scanning QR codes. Right? Now 85% of all digital transactions that happen in India happens through UPI. And India's digital transactions in terms of number of transactions are so high, UPI constitutes nearly 50% of all digital transactions happening globally. So you can understand the scale of UPI on which it is operating. Any new developments in UPI that you can remember? That is also very important. You know Sundar Pichai. Who is Sundar Pichai? Who is Sundar Pichai? CEO of Google, right? CEO of Alphabet, particularly. You know, he wrote a paper to the US Federal Reserve asking them to implement the same kind of a payment system like UPI but in US. You know, currently, if you have to transfer money in US, that is a cumbersome process. You have to use the services offered by private companies like Western Union, and they take hefty commissions. And even then, the transactions take place not in real time, but with a time lag. So even you have to send lakh rupees right now, you can do so instantaneously using UPI without any extra cost. Same is not true with even developed countries like US. Now, one more thing that you'll have to remember, how many countries UPI operates in? UPI currently operates in 8 countries, right? Bhutan, France, Mauritius, Nepal, Singapore, Sri Lanka, UAE, and Qatar. So there is an abbreviation that I've created, not so much abbreviation, but I'll tell you the full form. Big friends make new, smart, simple union. Big friends make new, smart, simple union. newer developments is UPI 123 Pay. What is UPI 123 Pay? It uses to be distant transactions to be used or made using even feature phones. What are feature phones? Have you seen those basic 1000 rupees, 2000 rupees keypad phones which do not have internet? Many people in rural area use that phone. Some aspirants also use that phone to minimize their screen time. Right? Even if you have that phone, you can now make a payment. That is UPI 123 Pay. It basically works through IVRS system. Yes, the latest is that now they've allowed biometric authentication for payments. Right now, the payment is authenticated through UPI PIN. But now they've even added biometrics like fingerprint, like facial recognition to it. And there is also a thing called as UPI Lite. Now currently, to make payment, you need internet connection. Without internet connection, the payment won't be made. But UPI Lite makes offline payments possible. How? There is a mobile wallet under which you can add 500 rupees. And even if you don't have internet at that time, you can make payment up to 500 rupees using that wallet, which is stored in your phone. Okay? Any reason why I was telling you how many countries is UPI functional in? Any reason? Because a question appeared this year only. See this question. Solve it now. How many among these countries international merchant payments can be made using UPI? Batao. Which one? UAE, France, Singapore. No Germany, no Bangladesh. इनको तो देना ही नहीं है. इनको तो देना ही नहीं है. Should we give it to them? UPI? You guys tell me. Since you guys going to be future bureaucrats, we have already given it to many of our good neighbors. Not at all. Good. Now, what is Abhidhamma Divas? Anyone can tell me? Abhidhamma Divas is a Divas which is celebrated on the full moon day of the month called as Ashwin. You know what is the significance of this day? Let me write it there only. You'll understand it. It is celebrated in the month of Ashwin. No, it is not the time when Buddha reached enlightenment. It is the time when Buddha descended from heaven to earth. But do you know why he first of all went to heaven? What was the purpose of Gautam Buddha moving to heaven, ascending to heaven as it is called? You all guys know now how much Buddhism and Jainism is important for UPSC? You all guys know that? Do I need to repeat it? No. That is anything relating to Buddhism, Jainism, very important from UPSC. Go through the PYQs once, you'll realize. Big part of the syllabus. Now, Buddha, after achieving enlightenment, he ascended to heaven. And this heaven was called as Tavattimsa Devlok. Right? Tavattimsa Devlok. What was the purpose of him moving to or ascending to heaven? Was to preach Abhidhamma to Queen Maya. You know who was Queen Maya? She was mother of Gautam Buddha. Now he stayed in Tavatsimma for 3 months. And what was the purpose of preaching Abhidhamma? What did Abhidhamma contain? Anyone? Abhidhamma contained philosophical and psychological analysis of life. Have you heard of Abhidhamma Pataka? Abhidhamma Pitaka? Have you heard of Tripitaka? What are Tripitakas? Tell me the names of three Pitakas. One is Abhidhamma Pitaka, Vinay Pitaka, and Sut Pitaka. Good. Abhidhamma, Vinay, and Sut Pitaka. These three are three Pitakas. These are holy texts of Buddhism. Now, after spending 3 months and preaching Abhidhamma to his mother, Queen Maya, Gautam Buddha again descended back to earth. And he descended back at a particular place known as Sankasya, which is now located in Uttar Pradesh. And an Ashokan elephant pillar is constructed at Sankasya to mark this significant event. And this day, when he descended back to earth, is called as Abhidhamma Divas. Now, what values did this part and parcel taught us? It taught us that wisdom should be shared. Buddha, unlike other people, whenever they got knowledge, he did not become arrogant. He used this knowledge and ensured that this knowledge is passed on to other people. This also shows the value of compassion towards your own parents, that he still cared for his mother. And it also shows reunion of heaven and earth. This also showed reunion of heaven and earth. Understood? Don't have to write this. Basically, everything is given here. I've just used this writing to explain it to you. If you have written, well and good. No problem. Any doubts? Have you heard of this news? Over 14 children in MP and Rajasthan have died after consuming a cough syrup which was contaminated with DEG, diethylene glycol. Have you heard of this news? So should a cough syrup contain diethylene glycol? Now there is a chemical which is edible added to cough syrup known as propylene glycol. And you know the purpose why we add propylene glycol to cough syrup? This acts as a solvent. So basically all the chemicals that we add to cough syrup, it helps them mix. Understood? Now this propylene glycol are of two types. One is edible, which is used in pharma sector. Understand? And it is a pure propylene glycol. And WHO says that yes, even if there is a contamination, only 0.1% contamination of DEG is acceptable. Up till this much contamination, it is okay. Otherwise, if it is more than 0.1%, then it becomes a non-edible propylene glycol. So another type of propylene glycol is non-edible propylene glycol. And you know, companies mix it with or adulterate it with different purposes because it is used in industrial purposes as a solvent. So there is a chance that DEG might also be there in higher percentage. And you know the cough syrup consuming which the children died, you know how much DEG it contained? More than 48.6%. When it was tested, it contained 48.6% DEG. Understood? Now you must understand that DEG is a harmful substance. So what kind of harm that it can do to you, let us understand this. Now let us talk about DEG. It is a colorless, odorless, toxic industrial chemical used as industrial solvent. It has an antifreeze properties and it is also used to manufacture plastics. Now an industrial grade propylene glycol which is meant for non-medical use is used instead of pharma grade which has high presence of DEG. So there is a possibility that industrial propylene glycol was used to make cough syrup which is meant for edible purposes, and this led to death of children. So if you consume it, it can damage your kidney, liver, central nervous system. All of this can be fatal, especially for children. And what is the acceptable level of DEG that can be available in cough syrup? Less than 0.1%. And how much it was? 48.6%. Failure of kidney. That is why those children died. Most likely the company who manufactured it. You know why? Ideally, as an industry, whenever you're using certain chemical, you have to test it. They must have not conducted adequate tests. That is why they were unable to find out that DEG is present in that propylene glycol, sorry. Understood? Any doubts? Now this is the news that we are going to tell me. Well, that company name not important, frankly, for your exam, right? What is important? The chemical. Well, drug testing agency, you can test your drugs even through private agencies. So problem testing agency ki nahi hai. Problem is of the company who was making that product. They should have gotten it tested. Now, Tiger Outside Tiger Reserve project. Before understanding this, you'll have to know basic behaviors of tiger. So whenever we come cover an important species, what are the three different characteristics that we note? Yes, yeah, Vansh, I know that you told me yesterday. You thought it was entire judiciary's pending cases. No, entire judiciary is how much? 4.57 crore cases pending. Now, whenever we cover an important species, like today we are covering tiger, what are the three different characteristics we cover? Habitat, good. Anything else? No problem. Yeah, Vansh. Now you know it, no? That is okay. Habitat, anything else that we cover? Habits and protection status. So today we'll have to deal with this habits. So we'll cursory deal with habitats and protection status. Yes. So what are the known habitats of tiger? What are known habitats of tiger? Well, tiger is a species that is found in different kind of vegetation. They are available in high mountain climates. They are available in evergreen and shola forests. Where are shola forests, by the way? They are available in tall grasslands. They are available in dry and moist deciduous forest. They are available in marshlands also, or even in swamps. So can anyone tell me examples of where they are available? Where is shola forest, by the way? They are umbrella species. They are also flagship species. What is flagship and what is umbrella species? Highest number of tigers in India are in the state of Madhya Pradesh. Shola forests are in Karnataka, Tamil Nadu and Kerala. Good. Nilgiri region. They are also available in Sundarbans. They are also available in colder states of Himalayas. But MP has the largest amount of tigers in India. So these are known habitats of tigers. Ranthambore. Good. Bandhavgarh. Where is Bandhavgarh? Now, what is the protection status? What is the IUCN status of tiger? What is the status in WPA? What is the status in CITES? Tell me. In IUCN, it is endangered. In WPA, Schedule 1st. In CITES, Appendix 1st. Now, let's talk about the habits. What are the known habits of tigers? चलो habits discuss करते हैं. Are these social or solitary animals? Are tiger very social or solitary? Solitary. पास जाओगे तो क्या करेगा टाइगर तुम्हारा? पास जाओगे तो क्या करेगा टाइगर? What would tiger do? It would eat you up. Good. They will have buffet over you. And it is also an animal which is very territorial. They do not like presence of other tigers also in their near vicinity. And how do they interact with forests and different areas? they are very adept in natural forest or in forested area. So even they can move outside forest wherever there is a vegetation. And you know the reasons why they disperse? They have a tendency to disperse. Can you tell me the reasons why they disperse? First of all, they disperse to explore newer territories. So which tiger, male tiger or female tiger, has a tendency to disperse further away? Tell me. It is male tiger that will disperse farther away than female tiger, but both of them have a tendency to look for new territories. Why do they look for new territories? First of all, to establish their dominance or search for mates, and they also disperse in case the forests are shrinking or if forests do not have the carrying capacity to support adequate tigers. Understood? Now tell me, why would a tigress disperse? Guess karo. What is the primary objective of a mother? What is the primary objective of a mother? To protect her kids. Similarly, tigress would also do the same. To protect her cubs. Understood? So you understand these are known habits of tigers. Now, how this tendency of tigers to disperse away from forest, how do they affect us human beings? Tell me. Now let us come to the article. If tigers move away from their habitats, what problems would it create? Human tiger conflicts. खाएगा क्या tiger? जीव जंतु. They might even conduct killings of people nearby. Right? And you know why we are discussing this? Because globally, India has 70% of world's white tiger. And about 1/3 of total tigers in India, they are living outside their tiger reserves due to explosion in their population and also their territorial expansion. Because forests do not have the carrying capacity to support increased amount of tigers. So in search for food, in search of new territory, they are moving away from tiger reserves. And this has created what problems? This problem. So how to deal with this problem? Now tell me, how many of you have filled or want to fill Indian Forest Service also? At least you should be able to answer this. तुम्हारी ट्रेनिंग यहीं से स्टार्ट हो गई. फॉरेस्ट सर्विस इंस्टीट्यूट क्या कराएगा? So what should we do to, first of all, deal with this kind of a problem? Should we send tigers back to their forests? Should we do that? Is this the solution? Students, obviously not a solution. If you send them back to forest, they again would come out. And forest do not have the carrying capacity to, if you force them to stay in an area, they probably would die, many of them. Not controlling the population, no, that is not a solution. Solution is to manage their outside presence. I told you even in previous classes that you are going to find a middle path in bureaucracy. Bureaucrats, what do? They find out of the box solution. They find something in the middle that takes care of interest of tigers, that takes care of interest of human beings. Understood? Remember, how many of you remember this that I've told you in previous classes? What you have to do? You have to do all these things. First, you will create a rapid response team. कि अगर if there is a news that yes, tiger has been spotted in a populated area, there should be a team that should go there and catch that tiger safely without harming the tiger also. And to track also, you need to also track the movements of tigers. And for that, you can use technologies like drones, like camera traps. There is a special app for that, M-Stripes app. Similarly, there is also a possibility that the rapid response team might take few minutes to arrive at the spot, if not 1 hour, 2 hour. So until then what? You have to train local people also to deal with such problems. And one important thing that Gujarat has shown us, why lions in Gujarat have increased despite not so great vegetation, is because people of Gujarat, they understand lion as their part of culture. They do not think lion is something against them. So they have learned to live in a same area where lions also move around. Similar kind of awareness can also be done in different areas of the country. And one of the programs of government is called as Bagh Mitra initiatives. Non-Hindi speaking people, you know the meaning of Mitra. Mitra means friend. Bagh means tiger. And you also have to equip the rescue teams and medical facilities so that they can catch the tiger and shift them to another location. Understood? Any doubts? How many of you have seen Captain America? How many of you have seen Captain America? So before he becomes Captain America, Steve Rogers is a very thin individual, petite individual, right? But he has very good morals. And what he becomes a superhuman after that transition, right? He can run faster, he is much more stronger, he can fight much more intensively, but with the same spirit that he had when he was a petite individual, right? Then what is supermoon? Then what is supermoon? Any idea? So if a human becomes superhuman, they become stronger. So does moon become stronger? No. I was just playing with you guys. You know what is supermoon? Now, how many of you know moon moves around the earth? You all know that, right? Moon moves around the earth. Is that path circular or elliptical? The path of the moon that it takes around the earth, is it exactly circular? The answer is no. So actual movement of moon is like this, slightly elliptical. There is a part where moon is farther away from earth, and there is also a time when moon is relatively closer to earth. This path which is further away from earth is called as apogee. Sorry, A1P, it is it. this part is called as apogee. And the point where it is very close to Earth, this part is called as perigee. So during the time when it is very close to Earth, moon appears from the Earth to be of bigger size, and that is called as supermoon. So it is not the size of moon that is changing, it is our perspective that is changing. And moon appears 14% larger and 30% brighter. Now, what kind of geographical phenomena would a supermoon demonstrate on Earth? Can anyone tell me? If supermoon or if moon is very close to Earth, what kind of geographical phenomena it would demonstrate? Low tide, high tide. You know, tide, the movement of sea waters in the coastal areas, tide, that is a phenomena that happens because of gravitational force of Earth and moon. So if moon is closer, the higher tides would be higher and the lower tides would be lower. So the waters in high tide would come further inside the coastal areas, and during lower tides, it would go further away from the coastal areas. Not tsunami, no Shivam. So people living in coastal areas very near to sea beaches would know this. Tide. So it leads to unusually high and unusually low tides. Understood? And this can also create coastal flooding risks if you are not prepared for it. And problems with low tides is that it can create problems affecting navigation and marine ecosystem. Right? Any doubts? So yes, in supermoon, moon appears more brighter, much more bigger. But it is not the size of moon that is changing. It is our perspective of moon that is changing because moon is coming near to the Earth. Okay? So खत्म किया जाए आज का. बहुत ज्ञान हो गया, right? Too much ज्ञान today. Too much knowledge. If today I would have done chemistry वाला नोबेल ना सब छोड़ के भाग जाते, आते नहीं कल से कि बहुत दिमाग खराब कर दिया सर ने. So let's meet tomorrow again at same time 4:30. Bye bye everyone. Have a very good evening.